Oh, that looks great. Keep turning. I might have just got an eagle. Over the next year, I plan to play every course in the greater San Antonio area and give them all a ranking and truly find out which is the best course in the greater San Antonio area. I have 55 courses that are shown on this UDisc map that I plan to include. I'm going to play a round at each course. While I'm playing, I'm going to have a scored round as well as give it an overall rating based on several different factors, including overall course design, the overall quality of the course, looking at the tee signs, baskets, tee pads, as well as overall upkeep of the course. I'm going to be looking at the overall beauty of the property that it's on. So if it's a nice scenic walk or if it's in downtown San Antonio. And then I'm also going to be just rating it on how much fun the course is. I figure what better spot to start my search for the best disc golf course in the greater San Antonio area than right here in my own backyard, Bandera, Texas. Bandera has one disc golf course, and that's Horseshoe Bend Disc Golf Course. It's an 18-hole course that plays along the river here. It definitely has some things that need to be improved, but we're going to take a look and see what we grade it today. Hole 1 at Horseshoe Bend is a 305-foot par 3. It's a dual fairway option. You can go big forehand over the left and kind of crash in near the basket, or you can throw a low tunnel shot and kind of skip in there for a look at the birdie. I'm going to go with the low skipping shot today. All right, that should give me some sort of a look for the birdie. Took a pretty hard skip though. For me personally, when it comes to course design, I like the dual fairway option, kind of give players an opportunity to play to their strengths. But I also like it when a hole says, hey, here's the shot you have to execute to get the birdie. If you don't have that shot, good luck. So I think a course needs to have a good balance of allowing a player to make decisions and play to their strengths, as well as telling you what shot is required to get the birdie. I ended up skipping out toward Circle's Edge. We'll see if we can make this putt to start our round with a birdie. This little limb might make it hard to get the height on it that I'd like, but a little left to right wind. All right. Oh, that was terrible. All right. Looks like we're starting with the par. All right, as well as playing the course and looking at the course design and how much fun it is to play the course, I'm also going to be looking at details like the baskets, the tee pads, the signage. So hole 1 was already missing a tee sign, so that's kind of a strike against the course here. And I'm also going to check the accuracy of them. So hole 2 here says it is 281 feet. I've got a rangefinder. We're going to see how accurate that is. I've got 284 feet, which I'd say that's fairly accurate. 281 feet versus 284 feet. It's not going to make a big difference in your shot selection. So hole 2 is a 284-foot slight tunnel shot. There is an option to go over the top if you have like a thumber or a tomahawk. I don't throw a lot of those, so I'm going to go with a Texas Ranger here and just try to hit this gap and skip up near the basket. Oh, all right. Definitely not the ideal landing zone. I'm just going to go with a horny toad, try to get close to the basket here. It does look like the green kind of runs away from you if you let it fade off too much, so better to play to the high side there. That's just about perfect. So there's these old foundations scattered around the course. To my understanding, this used to be a neighborhood, and then one of the times when we got a flood here in Bandera, this whole neighborhood got flooded and washed away, so they just didn't rebuild, and then they built a park here. All right, I've got a pretty easy tap in here to stay at even par through 2 holes. So these baskets, another DGA, I don't know exactly which ones, but they feel kind of narrow compared to a lot of other baskets. They catch decently well, but they're definitely not like the top tier basket, but they're serviceable for sure. I mentioned earlier certain holes require a specific shot and able to get a birdie. Hole 3 at Horseshoe Bend is one of those scenarios. In order to get a birdie, really it takes a good flex forehand that stays low and skips all the way up near the basket. This is one of the more elusive birdies on this course, and I really like this hole. T-Sign says it's 358. I shot it at 361, so pretty accurate there as well. But we are missing a tee pad. It's just some packed in gravel with some rocks. Definitely not the ideal teeing surface. I'm going to go with the Zane Jackson Warbird. Try to get this forehand out there on a little bit of anhyzer and let the disc do the work for me. Well, I did not get that disc turned over. I'm going to leave myself a tricky upshot through the little tunnel up there. Should be able to save a par though. So on this fairway, we got another one of those concrete slabs from one of the old houses. I left myself pretty much dead center in this little tunnel. Not ideal, but it is nice that it's here. I'm gonna go with a horny toad, a little flex forehand through the gap, and just play to the basket out there. Yeah, that's right there by the basket. Should be a tap in for the 3. Got a pretty easy tap in here for the par on hole 3. Stay even par through 3 holes. But hole 3 is one of my top 2 favorite holes on the course for sure. We'll see the other one a little later. Hole 3 is really a demanding, technical, shot shaping par 3, and I really love it for that. It is challenging. You don't see many birdies there, but when you get it, you really feel good about it. Hole 4 is really just a big spike hyzer over the top of these trees. The T-Sign says 310. I shot it at 317, but I did have to walk a little over to the right to get that reading, so it should be pretty close there. They have this low gap there, but I've never seen anyone with a putt to actually get there through that. So if you don't have a stronger arm, this is really a play for par. But if you do throw over 400 feet, you really have a pretty straightforward spike hyzer over the top. Definitely not the best course design, I wouldn't say, but it's a fun shot. We're going to go with the Zane Jackson Warbird. With hole 4 being 310 feet, it doesn't sound like you would need a pretty strong arm to get there, but when you have to throw it so high and let it work so far back left, you really have to have a pretty strong arm to get there. So definitely not the best hole for beginner players. There is this little bit of an opening that you can land in off the tee if you throw a bit of a shorter spike hyzer and then just kind of pitch up and take a 3 from there. I got a little lucky getting to that first tree by the tee, and then it kind of worked through here. Have a maybe 30 footer here to get a birdie though. All right, that putt felt good. All right, 1 under. But yeah, not much to this hole, really just a spike hyzer. Hole 5 is 316 feet according to the T-Sign. I shot at 318 feet. Really, it's a forehand. If you can get it nice and flat to the left, you got to go between that tree in the center of the fairway and those trees blocking the left. It makes kind of a tight little opening for the forehand, but if you hit it perfectly, you'll end up parked. I have seen a few people that go with a low hyzer, trying to skip around the grove of trees to the right, but I've never really tried that myself. I'm going to go with a Lone Star Disc Chupacabra and just try to get the forehand up there to circle 1. I like it. It's just got to hook up now. I pushed that one a little bit deep to that back wall, but I worked my way through that set of 3 trees and skipped up there pretty close to the basket. All right, nice easy birdie on hole 5 there. Oh, fumbled that pickup. So hole 5 is Pretty straightforward hole. Most courses will have some of those par threes that are in that 300-foot range that really you can throw backhand at it, forehand. There's a lot of different options on that hole. Not mad about it, but nothing special as well. Hole 6 is 256 feet. It's exactly what the tee sign says. Rangefinder said the exact same thing. Really, the play is this tunnel shot right down the middle. Most people will take a putter or a mid-range and just throw something straight up to the basket. I typically take something extremely overstable, like my Chupacabra, and throw over the top and kind of cheat the hole. So I'm going to throw both shots for you. I'm going to play the Chupacabra as my scored shot, but definitely a hole that you can kind of break here. So that one got into circle 1 pretty easily. I've probably got 15 feet for the putt. I'm going to go with an Artemis up the middle, see if we can give it a little bit of an ace run. Oh, definitely not an ace run. Most of the course has these paver tee pads. They've been kind of slowly adding them in. I know a lot of the local club has been doing a lot of work out here trying to get things ready. They've gotten most of the tee pads in. They're pretty solid in tee and surface. Nothing spectacular, but very good for the local community doing them. That's one thing about this course, and sometimes a lot of Central Texas as a whole, is when you're playing with lots of mesquites and smaller trees, sometimes you can cheat the course a little bit and just throw over the top rather than the intended line of the course designer. This is one of the nicer areas of the course. You've got a few bigger trees, as well as you've got the river running right along the course here. It's not always the cleanest water. We've been kind of in a drought here in Bandera, but whenever it is kind of flowing, it's a really nice touch and a beautiful part of this course. Hole 6 is a decent hole, but the fact that you can just throw over the top and take an easy birdie kind of not ruins the hole, but definitely takes away some of the challenge and appeal of it. If there was a way to really force that lower tunnel shot, it would bring the river into play as well as just be a much more technical shot to execute. But overall, it's fine. To this point on the course, all the tee signs have been accurate when they're there. Hole 7's tee sign is leaned up against this tree over here, no longer on the ground, but it does have the correct distance on it. Hole 7 is 253 feet. The pure line is probably a backhand turnover between those last two big trees on the right. I typically go with a flick with the Chupacabra, will usually get me up there putting. The hillside going kind of right to left, if you don't hit the forehand or turn over the backhand too much, it can roll down that hill and leave you like circle 2. So I do like that hillside as part of this hole. We're going to see if we can get up there for the birdie. That's a little bit long, I think. I definitely intended to throw that with a little bit more hyzer, but even if you push around that last tree, you will sometimes leave yourself a putt. I hit the bottom of the hill, so I'll probably have like a circle 2, circle 1 edge look for the birdie. I do like the shape of hole 7 because playing the backhand turnover, which is the way to pure the shot, if you turn it over a little bit too much, you can roll down the hill and really take away the opportunity for a birdie. Or if you don't turn it over at all, the river is over on the left, and I have seen people end up in the river. So it's a fun little short, challenging par 3. You can see hole 7 plays right along the river here, which actually has some water in it right now, which is actually nice considering we're in a drought. I ended up much closer than I expected. I've only really got like 20 feet, little uphill putt, shouldn't be too difficult though. Hole 4 through hole 7 are really kind of the birdie alley of this course. You want to pick up quite a few of those birdies because those first 3 holes are a little bit challenging, and then there's some challenging holes on the back 9 as well. Hole 8 is 294 feet. You've got a gap to hit off the tee, and then there's guardian trees left and right of the basket as you get closer to it. I'm going to go with a Texas Ranger on some hyzer. Just try to let it slowly fade in there near the basket. The local club has been doing a lot of cleanup on a lot of these brush and lower areas, because if you got off the fairway, it was really rough, lots of thorns and stickers. So I definitely appreciate them clearing out some of that, especially ATG, if you're listening. Thank you for all the hard work. All right, but let's see if we can get another birdie. I think we've got, what, 3 in a row right now? I think it's actually 4 birdies. So let's see if we can make it 5 in a row. Just didn't put enough height on that one. Had a good line, made it out of the gap, but needed to be significantly higher. The tee shot there is just tight enough to be intimidating, but also fair enough to where if you're a pretty good disc golfer, you should hit it almost every single time. I left myself with probably about 100 feet here to get up and down. Gonna go with the Horny Toad. One thing about Horseshoe Bend is you're not lacking for any rocks. So if you do have a new disc, it definitely can chew it up. But other than that, it really doesn't come into play too much. You just might not get skips on certain parts of the ground, and you might have to just clear some rocks from your run up. I'm gonna go with just a little flex forehand. Yeah. Those 2 trees, the one on the right side and the one on the left, are really just enough to mess up your tee shots, to make it a little bit challenging if you fade out too early or if you throw something too straight. So I really like those 2 being there to funnel the good shots in, and then the bad shots get punished. We got a pretty easy tap in here. I'm gonna go lefty. There we go. All right, hole 9 will be the first par 4 on the course. Hole 9 is a 522 foot par 4. I will sometimes go over the top with a growler on a big Anheuser line that sometimes you can get all the way up here across the road that you'll see here in a bit, and leave yourself a long look at 2. But I think the intended line is really this lower line with something overstable on a forehand. So I'm going to throw my traditional shot for my score, but then I'll also show you the intended line. I got caught up in the trees on the left, but really even with that, it's a pretty easy pitch up to save par. All right, Warbird, gonna go forehand, try to skip something low and get right. That was a little high. Yeah. Even there, you'd have an opportunity to get up and down for a 3. I ended up getting caught up on that Anheuser and some of these trees on the left side of the fairway. I came down in a fairly fortunate spot to leave myself a Spike hyzer over the top to maybe save a birdie. Just gotta get this high, spiky. I'm not exactly sure what the wind's doing up there, but hopefully the Chupacabra is overstable enough so it doesn't matter. Oh, it's going to get left for sure. I don't see where that fell, but I think it'll have a putt. I've got about 25 feet left for the birdie here. All right, there we go. Putt's actually been feeling decent lately. Not exactly sure what I shot on the front, but I think it was probably like 5 down or something like that. My thoughts on hole 9 are that it's a pretty easy par 4 if you can just throw over the top and cheat the hole a little bit. But if you are not able to do that, then it gets to be pretty challenging. I've seen some big numbers on this hole. For the limited space, I think it's a decent par 4.
Lost it 30 yards into a tree. So
well, it's easy to do. There's lots of trees out here.
Especially with the with a tripod behind me. I'm gonna do everything going.
Yeah. All right. Hole 10 is 242 feet. It's really just a pretty simple chip hyzer with an approach disc. I'm going to go with the Lone Star Disc Horny Toad. Oh, too tight. All right, thank y'all. Had a little bit of a crowd on that last shot, definitely early release. Left myself with like a 70 footer here. Can go with a little jump putt maybe. Ah, just a little low. All right, should be a tap-in for par. I'll get out of their way. Hole 10 is definitely one of the birdies you want to get. It's probably what the simplest hole in the course. There's a little bit of trouble if you end up where I did short left, or if you push it too long and too straight. Hole 11 is a 273-foot tunnel shot. I'm going to go with a Texas Ranger. Kicked off to the right there, but it's okay. I must have gotten a pretty lucky kick off the trees to end up in the middle here. Got a short circle 2 putt to try to get the birdie. Hole 11 is definitely a good hole. I think most courses should have a tunnel shot on it somewhere. That one is a good one where if you end up right or left, you leave yourself a challenging up and down to save par. Hole 12 is a 193-foot par 3. There's a double mando between these 2 big trees, and then you just got to get across the road and hopefully give yourself an ace run or a putt. I'm going to go with the Horny Toad again on a little flex forehand. See if we can give it a little ace run. Didn't turn it over enough. That's going to be a challenging birdie putt. For a shorter hole, I definitely like that. The double mando adds a little bit of stress off the tee pad. The area behind the basket used to be a little bit thicker, and it really punished you if you threw it too hard. They've cleaned that up a little bit, which isn't my favorite change, but overall it's a somewhat challenging short 193-foot par 3. I actually ended up a little closer than I thought. I'll have like a short circle 2 putt. Looks like I'll be putting directly into a headwind, so hopefully the Jackrabbit will have enough overstability where it doesn't float on me too bad. Play the lift a little bit here. I'm going to aim at the cage. And I got the cage. But I'm okay with that. Tap in for 3 here. The wind is definitely picking up out here right now, so that'll add some difficulty on my over-the-top shots. Hole 13 and hole 4 play essentially the exact same for me. I take the same disc and throw the exact same stock hyzer, and it usually will leave me pretty close to the basket. Got a little bit of a tailwind, which will probably help the shot even more. No tee pad here, and the tee sign is pretty hard to read there. Zane Jackson Warbird here. Just as long as you don't hit this first tree, you're okay. Yeah, that should be parked. Oh, I hit metal. I knew it was going to be close, but it didn't sound like it stuck. It either hit the pole or the cage. Oh, I've been wanting to ace this one so bad. Especially I need to get my drone up there and film it since it's a blind shot. Much like hole 3, if you don't have 400 plus feet of power, then it gets challenging to actually get a birdie. Unlike hole 3, there's no real landing zone for the shorter arms here, so I don't like the hole for that instance for beginners. I know I just hit basket. I'm like 99% sure that it didn't stick or anything, but how great would it be if I turned around this corner and it was in the basket? I'm not entirely sure if this hit the pole, the basket, or like the number plate, but it kicked off to about, I don't know, 8 to 10 feet here or so. So I'm assuming it hit the pole. All right, easy birdie. I had mentioned earlier there was another long par 3 that I really liked, and this is it here. Hole 14 is 406 feet according to the tee sign. Really, it's a big turnover. You've got to get it high and left and let it drift the entire way. I actually aced this one last year with a Lone Star Disc Growler. It's awesome because it's blind. There were some people on the hole next to it that saw me running. They signed my disc. It was awesome. So I'm going to try to replicate that. I've got a Growler here. I'm going to try to throw it high and left and let the disc just work its way back to the right. I like the line. Yeah, that's going to be pretty good. Okay, just making sure I didn't somehow ace it again on the impossible shot. This is a hole that is definitely hard for a beginner to reach, but if you've got a bigger arm, it's a really challenging and fun par 3. This is another area of the course that's actually very pretty. The creek is still, or the river actually, is still over behind me over there, but you've got a little bit of taller trees, and you're kind of secluded from the rest of town and everything. It's a nice area back here. All right, after that tee shot, I've given myself a chance at one of the more elusive birdies. I've probably got a 25-foot putt. It is a bit of a death putt. You can make these comeback putts from on the little cliffside here, but really don't want to go down there. So hopefully I make this. A little bit of a tricky stance. Probably going to go to a knee here. All right. Aiming high on the basket, let it drop in. Oh, don't roll. Okay. Well, tap in for par here. Not the most exciting finish to the hole. Ah, that's definitely one of the birdies that feels really good when you get it. All right, hole 15. It's missing its tee sign. I use my rangefinder. It's about 210 feet. Plays really well for a flex forehand with an approach disc or even an overstable mid or fairway driver. You can throw a backhand. That back wall comes into play. That makes it a little bit more challenging, and you're really playing for like a circle's edge putt. So I'm going to go with the Horny Toad on a flex forehand. That could do it. Come on. Okay. Oh, I'm giving it some ace runs right now. So that one should be pretty close to the basket there for a look at birdie. One thing that this course does pretty well is on these shorter holes that are close to 200 feet, they make it technical enough so it's not a gimme birdie, and it's still a fun shot to throw. I left myself in just tricky enough of a spot to make it exciting. Gonna get behind the disc here. Got some branches in my face. Oh, all right. All right, easy enough. Hole 16 is 273 feet. It plays similar to hole 4 and 13 where it's just a spike hyzer. It looks like there's a low line here, but really even when you throw it perfect and get a nice skip, you leave yourself at like circle's edge, so it's hard to park. When you go over the top, you get a little bit lucky with some of the trees to the right side of the basket, but it almost always leaves you inside the circle with some sort of a putt. Definitely not my favorite shot on the course. Kind of gets repetitive with just the spike hyzer. Gonna go with the Chupacabra here. Yeah, that should be pretty much perfect. Yeah, I think that should be a pretty close putt for me. I've got a putt from shallow circle 2, maybe even circle's edge. Normally I like to try to play a little bit deeper and left, kind of on that walk path over there, but this would be just fine. Really, that spike hyzer with all these trees on the right, it's just getting lucky through here. Come on. Oh, all right, I'm not mad about a high miss. I just hate it when I hit cage all the time. I think the best play on 16, honestly, is probably an overhand. If you do have that tomahawk or thumber, you can get it to fall right in this open space here, but I don't really have that shot, so I just take my chances with the Spike Heiser. Hole 17 is a 413-foot par 4 according to the sign, but I'm pretty sure they've moved this tee pad forward and back a bunch. Where it's at now, not my favorite spot because it is a fairly eagleable par 4, which is fun to have on a course, but I think this one's a little bit too easy. I actually take a growler and throw over the top. You can also throw a power forehand to get up there. I think that the course should probably scoot it forward some to make it a challenging par 3, or find a way to scoot it back and add some distance to it. Because if you can scoot back, it's going to take away that over the top shot. I'll go with a growler over the top here. Oh, that looks great. Keep turning. I might have just gotten the eagle. Okay, I didn't see it finish, which is a good sign. Sometimes if it gets too stable too quick, you'll see it finish left over here by this goat pin. But I should have a look for the eagle, hopefully. So I go over the top playing for the 2, but realistically, as long as you throw it across this road, you leave yourself with like a 200, 250 foot forehand approach shot. So it is really not hard to play for the 3. If you find yourself off the fairway, it can get a little bit challenging, but I don't see a ton of big numbers on this hole. I left myself about a 25 footer here. Normally, my mistake is I overturn it and end up in the woods behind the camera over here, and it's a really easy up and down for 3, but when I hit it perfect, I end up right at the basket or a little bit left. You just don't want to let it fade out too early because there is out of bounds over there. It's a person's property. There's a goat over there. Hopefully I can make this and get the eagle here for y'all. A little bit of a weird stance here. Then go ahead and give it a flip here. All right. It might not even be 25. It might be 20, but slightly awkward. Got some branches here. Maybe I should do this. Yeah, that's better. All right. Got a better swing here. Boom. All right. Nice eagle there. That's really the one thing I don't like about this hole, is the fact that it is a semi-easy eagle. I love the shot. Throwing that over the top, flexing shot. Really fun. I enjoy it. I just don't think it's a great hole for score separation. Hole 18 is another par 4. I think it's probably the closest thing to a true par 4 on this course. It's really a placement shot off the tee. You either throw like a backhand turnover that goes slightly right, or sometimes I'll go with a flippy forehand so it doesn't skip too far to the right. And then you're setting yourself up for the upshot onto a tricky green. I'm going to go with a Lone Star Disc Lariat and see if I can get up there for an easy up and down. Come on, turn. I'm going to be playing for par from there. This is the hole where I take more bogeys than anywhere else on the course, so it's probably the most challenging hole in my opinion. So the tee pad used to be about, I don't know, 50, 60 feet shorter, and you could go over the top just like I did on the last hole, and I didn't like it there, but they found a way to scoot it back a few feet, and that made it a much more difficult and much more challenging par 4. This next shot's going to be fairly boring. Just got to pitch it back to the fairway. Sometimes on the left side, you can leave yourself some sort of flippy forehand hero shot to try to get birdie. But from where I'm at, it looks like it's just a pitch out. Sometimes you have to know when to take your medicine. That little pitch out actually got me to where I want my drive to end up, leaving me this little flex forehand into the green. I'm going to actually throw that same horny toad I just pitched out with. So I'm going to throw it on the mini and try to get onto this green. This is actually one of my favorite greens on the course because there are some branches that come off to the left where you can't throw just a traditional hyzer, but then there's also the tall trees on the right that you can't just swing it out wide right. So it really requires that little touchy flex forehand. That looks good. Come on, ring it up somehow. Didn't get it, but it's parked. Easy tap in for the par to finish up. Easy tap in for the par on 18. I haven't quite determined what the scale is going to be, whether I'm doing a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 10, but I think going 1 to 10 is going to provide a little bit more variability so that I don't end up with any ties moving on later down the road. For Horseshoe Bend specifically, starting with the fun category, I'm going to give Horseshoe Bend a 6 out of 10. This one's hard to give any sort of reasoning for when it's so subjective, but I enjoy a lot of the shots out here. Even if the course design isn't the best in certain areas, I like throwing those over the top shots, getting to try to go for eagles, as well as the overall feel of the courses. Pretty good. For the quality score for Horseshoe Bend, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. That's mainly due to the fact that we are missing some tee pads as well as tee signs. The baskets are good quality, but not great. And then one thing I do appreciate is the fact that the local disc golf community, especially ATG, has been coming out here and really cleaning up a lot of the underbrush to make it a more enjoyable and more well-maintained property. When I first started coming out here to Horseshoe Bend, it would have probably been a 1 out of 10 on that scale. There was no tee pads. The underbrush was crazy. So they've made a lot of improvements, and I think they will continue to do so. My score for the overall course design of Horseshoe Bend is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. I think they do a good job working with the property they have. There are a handful of holes that I think could be tweaked slightly to make a better hole, providing more score separation, or just trying to remove the over-the-top options for some. But overall, it's a very well-designed track that is going to be good for beginners as well as higher level players alike. For the beauty score of Horseshoe Bend, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. It's nice and secluded, so you get away from a lot of the noise and the city of San Antonio. It is a little bit of a trek from San Antonio. You're probably looking at a 45-minute drive or so. But it really is a nice property, especially when you get down by the river. There's some nice trees. The river, when it's flowing, is beautiful. But other than that, a lot of it is repetitive. There's nothing spectacular about it. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. The overall score with those calculations will be a 5.625, which I think is pretty fair for the course. I think it is an above average course compared to many others, but it is definitely not a top tier course that you would travel across the country for. Now that I've gotten one of the 50 or so courses checked off, which course would you like to see me do next? Drop a comment, let me know, and then like and subscribe to see the follow-up videos.